𝗪𝗏𝗏 and good evening everybody, and croeso, welcome to my office here in Westminster, and croeso to the Secretary of State for Wales, David RC Davies, who has actually got an office a few doors down. I'd like to start by saying I've had quite a nuclear week. I was the keynote speaker at 𝗪𝗶𝘁𝗵. We had the Wales Nuclear Forum, which is what next for new nuclear in Wales, and I'd like to say congratulations, 𝗪𝗶𝘁𝗵, to sesiwn Davies, the new chairman of the Wales Nuclear Forum. And I'd also like to thank Marvin and all the team at 𝗪𝗏𝗵 for looking after me so well, and also all those at the Sage Kitchen, Kieran, Kaylee and Dexter. We had a fantastic a dinner there ahead of the event. Had an excellent meeting with the 𝗪𝗏𝗁 team yesterday, and hopefully we should hear news soon from the Future Nuclear Enabling Fund. This was a £120 million fund to support the nuclear sector. I think you were there when it was launched on the,
yes,
the Ireland Secretary of State.
Do call me David, by the way.
I'll call you David,
so,
okay.
This Facebook Live doesn't feel like a very formal situation, to be honest.
I'll call you David.
Or TC or whatever, yeah.
But talking to 𝗪𝗏𝗁, we're going to be got a few initiatives. We're going to be doing a student event for SMRs on the island, and they're going to come and speak to my APPG for SMRs. I chair the APPG for SMRs, a cross-party group. And then here in Westminster on the 22nd of November, I have Anglesey Day in Westminster. You're actually coming to speak at that, yeah? No, thank you very much for that. So they're going to.
I seem to think I went away with a few treats from
you
Anglesey
did,
last year.
You did, and hopefully we'll have some red dragons as well. On Thursday, I'm coming to the island actually tomorrow night. I'll be taking UK atomics around the island, and also tomorrow I've got a big Westminster Hall debate at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So do please, you can watch it on Parliament TV, and I'll be talking about Great British Nuclear. And Andrew Bowie, the new nuclear minister, will be responding. Also this week on Thursday morning, I've got my over 50s jobs fair. I've got the DWP, Monsief, Mentamorn, Caerlink, Stena, lots and lots of companies there, and that will be on Thursday morning. It's free. It's 10 till 12 at the Holyhead Town Hall. Please do get in touch and register. On Friday, I'm going out with the Coast Guard. David, really looking forward to that. Lawrence
They do a great job.
Ramsey, and I've also got a meeting with 𝗪𝗏𝗁 and Llanlas. And then I'd like to say public good luck to Glenys Sampson, who's got her ordination on Saturday at Bangor Cathedral. So good luck to you, Glenys. But now, David, over to you. So tell us about your journey. How did you come to be the Secretary of State for Wales, one of the most important roles in Wales?
Well, I started off standing for the council in Newport in the 1990s and always losing. I stood for Parliament in Bridgend in '97 and lost again, and then my run of luck changed then, because actually I was on the losing side of the referendum as to whether or not we should have a Welsh Assembly. But then things changed a bit, because then I stood for the Assembly in '99 in Monmouth, won, and up until now, fingers crossed, I've been winning ever since. Firstly, two elections to the Senedd, and I forget how many. I'm trying to think now. 5, 10, 15. 17, 19. I think I missed one out there actually. But anyway, about 5 or 6 since then.
You're basically very experienced.
Well, so far so good.
And how did you hear that you were going to be the new Secretary of State for Wales?
Well, I got a phone call when the cabinet was being appointed, asking if I'd walk up Downing Street. So I said yes, but just out of interest, is that good news? And they wouldn't say, but then I figured out it probably was, because they never sack anyone by getting him to walk up Downing Street.
That's all done behind
the
Speaker's chair.
I was a junior minister, so I wouldn't have been sacked anyway in public like that. So yes, so that's how it happened. So I didn't actually know what was going to happen until I walked in. But you actually spend quite a long time waiting.
Oh right.
Yeah, you spend a long time waiting, and then the PM likes to have a chat with everyone. The only people in the room are the Prime Minister and the Chief Whip, who's my old boss, of course, Simon Hart, and then a sort of a friendly but serious-looking man came along and asked me to list all of the things I'd done in my past that might cause embarrassment.
Okay, Ministerial Code.
Yeah. And that was about it, really.
Okay.
Off we went.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And how different is the job? You were obviously the Parliamentary Undersecretary. Now we've got James Davies. How different is the being Secretary of State to that role?
Well, I must admit, I thought when I was doing the Parliamentary Undersecretary of State, I was doing it as a whip as well. I thought, well, you know, I'm managing this. Okay, I was doing one or 2 days. I was doing a fraction of what Simon Hart the then Secretary of State was doing, but I thought, well, it's just the same, but more of it. But there's actually a lot more to it as well, because you sit on cabinet, you sit on cabinet committees, you're out and about a lot more, and there are certain expectations on you. So it is quite a big jump, but it's a great job. You know, it's a real honour to be doing it. And after about 24 years in Welsh politics, almost a quarter of a century, to be doing this is just an absolute honour and pinnacle of my career.
Well, you certainly seem to enjoy it. We have the Welsh MPs. We have a regular Monday meeting. We call it prayers, don't we?
Yes.
With David, and we talk about the sort of key issues, and you know, particularly in each of our constituencies. And you're very good about going around Wales. And I think you've been to see Morlais, haven't you? And you came for when we got Freeport status. You were there with the Prime Minister, and you spent a lot of time.
The great thing about this job is that I get to go to visit Wales every Thursday. The PM, one of the PMs asked was, he said, if you're going to do this, take this position on, you've got to be out and about in Wales. So I said, PM, I'm really pleased about that, because you don't have to ask me that twice. I'll be out every week. So every Thursday, I'm out and about somewhere in Wales. Monday's usually in Cardiff in the Wales office, because we've got a Wales office hub down there with a lot of civil servants working for various different departments in Cardiff. And I'd like to see that happen in North Wales soon. So we've got that on Monday, then Tuesday, Wednesday in London, then Thursday always out and about somewhere visiting some of the projects that the government's involved with. Then obviously Friday and Saturday I look after the constituency and the family.
Excellent, excellent. And so we've got questions coming. So Bernard Gentry says, looking forward to the jobs fair on Thursday. It's important to promote older people to employers. Absolutely, Bernard. And also I think they're a vital skills that we want to encourage.
Quite right, Bernard. I mean, I think, is it an over 50s job fair?
Yeah, over 50s
well,
job
I'm
fair.
over 50. I mean, I think we've all got plenty to give. Are you over 50, Virginia?
Oh, well, you can't ask a woman that. You can't ask a woman that. All right,
so
you were at the Welsh Affairs Select Committee last Wednesday. It was quite a interesting Welsh Affairs Select Committee. But one of the things we spoke about was nuclear, and we've had our big Welsh Affairs Select Committee report on nuclear in Wales. So where are you, David, on nuclear?
Well, first of all, absolutely in favour of nuclear. If we're serious about being net zero by 2050, if we're serious about not relying on fossil fuels, we're going to need a lot more electricity than we've got at the moment. Estimates vary. I think the government think we need to be able to generate at least 100 gigawatts. But some people would suggest we need more than that, because we're going to electrify transport, we're going to be electrifying heating in all of our homes, we're going to be electrifying industry a lot more. So we're going to need a lot more electricity. Renewables will supply a lot of that, but the problem that we have with renewables is that you can't always predict when the wind's going to blow or the sun's going to shine. You can even out some of those problems a little bit, and we can start developing battery storage on a larger scale. But if you want really large amounts of electricity on tap, in other words, to deliver the base load, the amount that you're going to need all the time, I think nuclear is the only way to do it. That's what all the experts say. So we've got to have nuclear. We've got to have more nuclear than we've got at the moment. And 𝗪𝗪𝗪 is, I think, one of the best sites, not just in the UK but in Europe. It's very well located. No, sorry, not 𝗪𝗪𝗪, sorry, Wilder. 𝗪𝗪𝗪, sorry.
That might be the second site.
I'm going to come to 𝗪𝗪𝗪 in a minute. I know that's not your main concern. Wilder is one of the best sites in Europe because of all the political buy-in. You've got all of the political parties supporting it. The location is great. It's right there on or near to a free port as well. And that is the site that everyone sees as having the potential for either another reactor or for SMRs or for both.
Yeah.
𝗪𝗪𝗪, is also a very important site, but that wouldn't be big enough for a reactor. It would be large enough for a small SMR, because they come in different sizes, or for several small SMRs, or possibly for medical research as well. So North Wales is going to be a great centre for nuclear, and it's just how we push that forward now. And I think obviously Great British Nuclear and Cwmni gyda have a big role to play in this.
Excellent. And we've got more questions coming in. Make it your business, Ynys Môn. I'd like to give a big shout out to all of our entrepreneurs and businesses on Ynys Môn. They really are the backbone of our communities, and I think we need to make sure we look after them. We've got Joe Weir, who runs the Beau's Tea Room in 𝗓𝗏, definitely one to visit David. We've got Abby Jenkins, the 𝗓𝗏𝗶𝗴𝗶. We've got Janice, who's got Jaspel Cider and Tea Croix. We've got 𝗪𝗶𝗿𝗴𝗏 Creative, Stacey Chadfield there, and we've got the Realm of Nerds. We've got Gemma, mother and daughter team, Gemma there. So we've got lots of absolutely fantastic entrepreneurs all across Ynys Môn. So thank you to Make It Your Business for all of their support. So the question coming through is, what do you think of a third crossing to Anglesey, and who should pay for it? So of course, we had the Welsh Government, because we don't have investment at 𝗪𝗏, they've now changed their plans for the plans for a new crossing. Do you believe that it should be a company that invests in the island? Obviously, if we have new nuclear, where we've got the DCO, the Development Consent Order, and there's a lot of these sort of like section 106 type issues there. This is obviously a Welsh government should be investing in our roads and in that third crossing. But what's your view?
Well, first of all, we need the Welsh Government to change its view on road building. We need to have new roads in Wales. We have, if we're going to attract in business and investment and projects like nuclear at 𝗪𝗏, we're going to need the road infrastructure to be able to deal with that. And to my mind, it's obvious that Ynys Môn will need a third crossing. Clearly, the Welsh Government would have to take the lead in paying for that. Roads are a devolved matter. But there's no reason why, if there are big companies or big organisations investing in Ynys Môn who will see a benefit from a third crossing, why they couldn't be asked to contribute in some way. And I'm sure they might be willing to do that. But clearly, you can't just have a government that says we're not going to build any more new roads. I know you're very familiar with the situation in Ynys Môn. I'm very familiar with the M4 and the M4 relief road. We've got to have an M4 relief road. Yeah. And the Welsh Government has spent £150 million compulsorily purchasing property, drawing up all the plans for it. It's ready to go. We've got the land there. We've got the plans. We've spent £150 million on it already, and suddenly they turn around and say we're not building any new roads anywhere. That's got to be wrong. So we've got to have a government in Wales that supports road building where it's necessary.
And we've got a great question from Katie Hayward. No matter what project comes along, the care and respect of the community should come first and foremost. Our community should not be taken for granted. Absolutely, Katie. Yeah. And one of the reasons why 𝗪𝗏 is one of the best sites in the UK is because of the community, and it's that support that's absolutely vital, and that will is taken into account with the DCO. And when I go around the island, young people say to me, they say, it's all about community on the island, and one of the best things that we can do for our young people is make sure they've got good quality jobs so that they can stay in their communities, and that's the best thing that we can do for the Welsh language.
Completely. That's why, that's another reason why nuclear would be really good for us. And it's not the main reason, because it's mainly about generating large amounts of electricity in a carbon-free way. But let's just think about this. I mean, we've all got this problem. I live in a rural area too, in Monmouthshire, and I think we all see this problem of young people getting to the age of 18. They want to go to university. They want to go and make a career somewhere else. They want to make they all head off for the big cities, and that's particularly damaging in areas where there are large numbers of people who speak Welsh, Ynys Môn, Gwynedd. And so if we can bring the big organisations, the big companies and projects into those areas, our young people, and I've got 3 teenage children, they won't need to leave. They can stay there and develop a career within those areas, and yes, that would be really good for the Welsh language.
Absolutely. And we've got here Lisa Houghton. She says, I agree regarding new roads. Unfortunately, the transport policy in Wales does not work for rural Wales. It's very urban-centric policy. Good point there, Lisa. Barbara Clare says, job security on Anglesey is so critical. Paying the bills is what's on people's minds. More and better paid jobs, essentially for all ages. So not just over 50s, Barbara. And I know you've got youngsters.
Well, I mean, the Freeport hopefully is going to be really good for jobs on Anglesey as well, because there are people who are looking to invest now as a result of the decision to create a Freeport there. So hopefully that's going to be good as well. And there is also the potential for other kinds of renewable energy for tidal stream and so on. So hopefully there are some projects there that are going to land and provide exciting careers for people in the future. And
the companies now we're on the world stage now, David, and lots of companies being in touch. They want to invest on the island. I had an excellent meeting with the US Embassy last Thursday, and the head of the sort of nuclear policy is also called Virginia, very handy, and also the Korean embassy as well. And these are countries that are looking to invest in Anglesey because we have free port status. And the companies that I've been taking around the island, I mean, a lot of people see me taking companies around. Everyone stops for a chat. We go up to 𝗪𝗶𝘁𝗵 in 𝗪𝗏, and we go to 𝗪𝗏𝘁 hotel. I really want to make sure these companies have a great experience on the island. And these are companies where the average salary is more than 2 or 3 times those on Anglesey. And clearly we have a very vibrant and important tourism and hospitality sector, but that is quite cyclical, and it's good to, and there are some great careers in tourism and hospitality, but it's good to have a broader offering for our young people. Trish Marshall says, good evening. And Noswaith, can I ask the Secretary of State, does he think that 𝗪𝗏𝘁𝗵 Health Board is too big and they should cut it in 2? And it's about time that Ellen Ed Morgan should sort out the mess it is in.
Okay, I'm going to say, I'm going to answer you honestly, I don't know if it's too big. I don't know that that's the problem. But there's clearly a problem with leadership there. So what I think is this, we had independent commissioners who went in there and asked difficult questions. They pointed out, or they drew attention to what we better carefully call irregularities in the way that very large sums of money were being spent. They should have been listened to. These were serious people with making serious points. They needed to be listened to. Instead, they were hauled in and sacked. That is completely unacceptable. They should be reinstated. The EY report, which goes into a lot of detail about this, should be published so that we can all see it. And the minister needs to front up and stop saying it's nothing to do with me, they're a separate body. No. The NHS in Wales is answerable ultimately to the Welsh Health Minister. She needs to get a grip of this problem, acknowledge that there is a problem here, publish the EY report, talk to the independent commissioners, and then thoroughly investigate what's gone on, and if necessary, put in place new people to run the health board. It may be that it needs to be split up. I'm not sure. I just don't know. I wouldn't like to say. I don't think it's necessarily the size that's the problem. It's the way it's been run, from what I've seen of the reports that I've read.
And then we've got Make It Your Business Again says, sorry to ask again. That's quite all right, but is there a role for UK government in making the third crossing happen, because it is a key piece of UK transport infrastructure, not just Welsh infrastructure? And what we saw, David, was in the budget, the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, announced £20 million for the Holyhead breakwater, because of course having that is such an impressive breakwater. Having that breakwater is absolutely critical to protect the town of Holyhead, and if we're going to have investment in the port. So we saw the UK government step in. It didn't have to, but it stepped in because that's just such a vital piece of our infrastructure. So are we expecting the UK government to do that, or do we expect the Welsh government to be investing?
Well, the Welsh government don't have a policy of saying no new breakwaters, right? But they do have a policy of saying no new roads. So it would be difficult, very difficult indeed. I'm not even sure it would be legally possible, but there are people who say it is, and I'll let the lawyers argue about that one. But for the UK government to go in there and say, okay, we've got, whether we like it or not, a democratically elected body has said they will not build any new roads. I don't like it. You maybe many of the people watching this don't like it either, but that's what they've said, and they've won an election on that basis. So for the UK government to turn around and say, actually, we're just going to ignore that, and we're going to build one anyway. I mean, first of all, there'd be a whole load of legal arguments, because it would have to go for planning. Planning is still a Welsh government issue. Are we really going to send in bulldozers when in that situation? I don't think that would be a good idea. I've got to be honest with you. So I disagree with the policy, but I accept. I voted, I have to admit, I voted against the Senate 25 years ago, but people voted for it. We've got to respect that. I've got to respect that. People have voted for a Senate, so we have a duty and an obligation to respect it. Secondly, people have voted for a Labour government in Wales. I didn't vote for a Labour government either, but I have to respect that. I have to, because that is the foundation of democracy, right? So the Welsh Labour government have been democratically elected, perfectly fair election, no question about that. They've said they will not build any new roads. Could I, as a Democrat, really, use the law to go in there, send in bulldozers, and just go and build a road that? I just don't think I could do it. I really don't think that we should do that. I think we have to respect the fact that that's what they've said and persuade them to change the policy or vote for another government. So that, I'm afraid, is the harsh truth. We cannot, well, we should not, even if we legally could, we should not overrule a democratically elected body.
But of course, and make it, but they say thank you for your answer, Secretary of State. That was very helpful to understand. But of course, we do have Holyhead being the second busiest roll-on port in the whole of the UK. And we have had that, you know, the Midnight Suspension Bridge closed suddenly in October for weeks and weeks with such short notice. And we've got the Britannia Bridge, which closes in high winds as well. And we had the 𝗪𝗏 Union Connectivity report there. That actually, you know, that crossing to Holyhead is just vital. You know, we are the gateway to Europe. So I think it's really important that we do have that investment. And the pressure's on the Welsh Government.
I mean, it's not for me to sort of suggest how to run a campaign on this, but I would certainly be suggesting that maybe the North Wales Economic Ambition Board, who are the growth deal body, perhaps the local authorities involved up there, the members of Parliament, councillors, councils, all have a look at this. I mean, can we get a rough figure of what it would cost, and then go, all of us if necessary, and I, as Secretary of State for Wales, would be happy to say publicly, you need a third crossing there, and we need a change to this policy. I've said that anyway. You know, to go back to Welsh Government, say, can we just have a bit more flexibility to just say no more new roads, never again, is just not realistic, and I think they're going to have to change on this one. So that's where I think we need to go on it.
And then we've got some more questions. Everyone's brilliant tonight. Thank you very much for coming through. Trish Marshall, in answer to your question about Betsy, says, I think it's about time that Ellen and Morgan should sort it out, as I was supposed to see a consultant at 𝗪𝗏 in April, and I'm still waiting, and that there is no possibility of me seeing him until September at least. Trish, I know health is devolved, and Ynys Môn is represented by 1 Member of Parliament and 5 MSs. But I would urge you, drop me a line and see what I can do. I can't promise anything, but let me see what I can do, Trish, because this seems really, really unacceptable. Now, you've spoken about roads, and we had the announcement today of these 8 new laws by Mark Drakeford in the Senate, and one of them was the increasing the number of members in the Senate from 60 to 96. So Ynys Môn is currently 5 MSs. So the next Senate elections will be represented by six MSs, and all of those will be proportional representation. None of them will be first past the post. So you'll be voting for the party, not the person. So what are your thoughts on that? And also, what does that mean for democracy, that they haven't gone to the electorate for that? And what does that mean for people's hard-earned taxpayers' money?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, the PR system they want to use is called a closed list system, where people will just end up voting for a party, as I understand it, not for individuals. So that means that the political parties get to decide effectively who goes in and who doesn't, because you can put people at the top of the list and be certain that they're going to go through. Put them at the bottom of the list, they almost certainly won't. So it gives the political parties a lot more power over and power to make sure that the only people who get in are people who are likely to toe the line. And actually, in politics, you want people who don't always toe the line. So not very good, I think, for democracy. And secondly, it's going to be very, very costly to do this. We've calculated that it would probably cost around £100 million over the first term, because it's because of all the add-on costs to it. That's money that could be better spent on other things, most definitely. So I don't know how many people can honestly say they know all of their Senate members and they're in touch with them. But having extra ones, I don't think is going to add anything to the democratic process, and certainly not when they're being selected in that way. You know, one of the arguments is the government needs greater scrutiny. Well, nobody's going to be scrutinising their own political party if they know that by doing so they'll probably find themselves at the bottom of a party political list next time round.
And it does mean that because Ynys Môn will be merged with other parts of North Wales, we could actually end up with no MSs actually living on the island, which I think would be dreadful for us having a voice in Westminster. One of the first things I actually did was actually get an amendment to the boundaries bill, David, and it meant that Ynys Môn's got protected status. So forevermore, we were due to be merged with Bangor, and forevermore we will always be very, very special, and we'll only have 1 MP that will always represent just Ynys Môn here in Westminster. And also, I think some of the other things that were discussed today was we were talking about gender quotas in the Senate. This was one of the eight laws that Mark Drakeford talked about today.
I mean, again, I think you've got to leave it up to the public to decide who they want to vote for. I mean, I would support actually very strongly the ambition of having gender parity, it should be about 50-50 in every parliament and every local authority. But you can't get there through passing legislation. You've got to get there through, to some extent, political parties have got to make sure that that they offer that choice. But ultimately, it's down to people to decide who they're going to vote for.
And then Felicity, hi Felicity, she says, I'm horrified to have yet more politicians plus civil servants in Wales. It would be better to build the houses so badly needed here. Why should we, the tax public, have to pay for more when we have not voted for them to be increased? And Frederica says Plaid Cymru's new leader is pushing for independence. So of course Plaid, they want to be out of the UK, but they want to be part of Europe. And one of the things you talked about very clearly earlier was democracy. Now, more people in Wales voted for Brexit than actually voted for the Senate. So Frederica says, I personally feel this would be so wrong and inappropriate. Do you envisage that this could happen? She is Welsh. So what's your views on independence?
Yeah, I'm proudly Welsh and proudly British, and I think it would be a disaster for Wales to pull out of the Union. If we did pull out, there are all sorts of questions that nobody's going to answer. Like, for example, what would our currency be if we joined the European Union again? Presumably it would be the euro. It would take years anyway. I mean, let's be honest about it. We're 10 years away at least from some referendum on. Let's suppose in 10 years' time Wales voted to separate from the rest of the United Kingdom. Well, it would take another probably 5 years before you could even get around to holding a referendum on rejoining the EU, and then it would take another 10 years after that to do it. So I mean, you're looking at least 25 years before that could happen. Then you'd have arguments over that. Would we have a hard border in between England and Wales? What would happen if people are working on one side of the border and living on the other side? It'd be absolutely, crazy. And I can't imagine that if Wales voted to separate from the rest of the UK, that we'd really want to be getting into that straight away. So I think this idea of rejoining the EU is a bit pie in the sky. In any case, it's far from certain the EU would have us, because it would only take, I think, one country to block us, and Spain almost certainly would, because they wouldn't want Catalonia doing the same thing, or the Basque countries. So it's probably not a realistic possibility.
But also, if we rejoin the EU, we'd have to say goodbye to our free ports. The reason, post-Brexit is the reason we've got 2 fantastic free ports in Wales and the potential to have £1 billion worth of investment and 13,000 jobs. So you'd have to say goodbye to all of that investment. Nia says, what projects across the island are you supporting? She's talking about llwyddwn. I'm actually going to see llwyddn, actually, Nia. Really, really looking forward to that. I mean, so many projects. Obviously, my 2 biggest campaigns were for Anglesey to be a free port, and also for new nuclear at 𝗪𝗶𝗿, but we've got Morlice, Monesto, we've got BP Mona and BP Morgan, which are offshore wind. We've got so many exciting things, and there's a reason why Anglesey is known as Energy Island. We also had £4.7 million from the UK government for the Holyhead hydrogen hub, and we've had so much investment from the UK government, and it really does demonstrate that this government is committed to levelling up places like Ynys Môn. We had 17 million for the Levelling Up Fund, 16 million for the Shared Prosperity Fund, 2.7 million for the Community Renewal Fund. We even had over 600,000 for the Safer Streets Fund. So time and time again,
the Community Ownership Fund as well.
Yeah, I mean, time and time again, we've had investment from the UK government, and I've had 18 ministers and 2 prime ministers visit the island. So yeah, absolutely, we're ensuring that we're front and centre of government policy. There's a bit of chat here about the bus services. The bus services in Holyhead have been cut. The T2 service has had funding to operate, and Make It Your Business saying her Holyhead bus service, they're asking about this because it's Anglesey Council have said they don't have funding from Welsh Government. So what is this about? A critical bus service that we need?
That is possibly correct, because the UK government decided to continue the bus subsidy post-COVID, and quite right too.
Yeah.
That money got passed on to Welsh government because they automatically get it as a market consequential, but we can't tell them what to do with it. And they've decided that they're not going to continue with the subsidy across the whole of Wales. So everyone in Wales is going to see bus services either cut or being made a lot more expensive.
So in terms of that money, that's being used for other sort of vanity
we
projects.
We know not what, but probably paying for some more Assembly members, Senate members.
And what's tourism and hospitality is vitally important to Ynys Môn, and it's one of the reasons why I had the Employment Allocation of Tips Bill. So I amended the 96 Employment Act so that when you pay for your meal and for your tip, or on your credit card, that money will actually go to people, and that will benefit over 2.5 million people right across the UK, and with an average sort of few £100s in their pocket, which is vital at this particularly challenging time. So tourism and hospitality, important for Ynys Môn, important for your constituency. What's your view on this tourism tax?
Tourism tax will be a disaster. I mean, even worse, if anything, in areas like Monmouthshire, because it's right close to the border. So if people are going to have to pay a charge to spend a night in Wales, and they could just as easily go to Ross on Wye or somewhere, that's what they're going to do. Companies in North Wales are going to be competing with companies in England, of course, for the tourism pound. There's also going to be a lot more restrictions. There's going to be restrictions on people on how often they can rent out properties. I know farmers have contacted me really angry about this because they're going to be expected to get some sort of licensing before they can rent out their own properties. So it's just hitting tourism as an industry. It's one of the most important industries in Wales. What we should be doing is looking at what one of the North Wales growth deals is, which is about developing tourism as a career rather than just something that people do for a few months in peak season. The idea is to develop training courses so that people can actually make a whole career and a really well-paid one out of tourism, starting off perhaps on a lower paid job and then working their way through.
Excellent. So I was going to say, 𝗪𝗻𝗩, thank you so much, David, for joining us. It's been fantastic questions. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to seeing many of you over the next few days on the island. I'd like to end by saying that next week we have regular invitations to Number 10 and for people on our constituency, and I've got somebody from the NHS, 𝗪𝗍 𝗪𝗍, who runs Physiomorn, and she's an NHS physiotherapist. She's got her own practice in Llwyddwn. It's excellent there near 𝗪𝗶𝗁𝗵, and she set up this fabulous walking group, and she also does the Santa Dash. So 𝗪𝗍 will be coming with me to Number 10 next Tuesday, and then she's going to come on our Facebook Live. So really looking at having her as a guest. So thank you, everybody, and 𝗪𝗻𝗩, thank you so much.
Going to be fynd, 𝗪𝗶𝗁𝗵 Cymru and Gemau Arenesoedd.
Oh, fantastic.
The Island Games.
Yeah, that's good luck to the Island Games in Guernsey. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening. Take care.